Hi scientists! So yesterday we investigated two different types of paper towel to see which was more absorbent to benefit our school. And before we did our investigation, I asked you to generate an idea about which one you thought was going to be more absorbent. Now, when you did this, you're actually making a prediction first, but you're also thinking about maybe even forming a hypothesis. So you were already doing a scientific skill you didn't even know about yet. So a hypothesis, say hypothesis. A hypothesis is an idea or explanation that you then test out through an investigation. So, for example, the other day, I had an idea that I wanted to investigate. And this idea came to me because I had glasses of water all over my house. And I was thinking, what if some of them were outside and some of them were inside? So I wanted to make that into a hypothesis. If I left water inside and outside, then the water would evaporate quicker outside. And my theory behind this is because the sun is beating down on it. But I have to test it out to see if my hypothesis is correct. Help me think of one for runners. So I like to run sometimes. However, I'm not the fastest runner. So what's something that maybe limits me or makes other people faster? What do you think? So I know Mr. O'Malley is a better runner than me. So I'm thinking, he's different than me in some ways. So maybe if you have longer legs, then you are a faster runner. Now, I can't say this for sure. I have to test it out and use multiple runners that have longer legs, right? I actually have to measure. So obviously there's flaws to that statement, but it's just the idea of formulating a hypothesis. So what I was going to do right now is I went scuba diving about 2 years ago and I saw some crazy things with my observations. I noticed a lot of fish in one area and I want to see if you make the same observations so we can try to formulate a hypothesis together. All right, scientists, so make some observations quickly. What do you notice about where the fish are? How many? What are they doing? Think to yourself right now, why might so many fish live in a coral reef? And so many different kinds. Oh my goodness. So when I saw this, I hypothesized. I said, maybe if fish live near predators, then they need to hide in coral reefs. It makes sense, right? Why might that make sense? Think about it. Are coral reefs like a habitat? Yeah, and they're hard and the tiny fish can go inside. So if there's a big predator coming by, it keeps them safe. So of course I would have to test this hypothesis out. But I want to think about a hypothesis that we can actually try at home tomorrow. So I want us to generate ideas today. So let's take a look at our next slide. All right, so in our book, take a look at page 21. If you don't have it, you gotta follow the directions on Google Classroom first, but make sure you have it open to pause. Hypothesis, let's read it together. Scientists hypothesize when they think of a testable statement that tries to explain an observation. I want you to underline scientific words as we read too. So hypothesis, observation. Suppose you notice that water seems to evaporate at different rates from containers with different shapes. What would you hypothesize is a cause? So I'm thinking maybe if a bowl or a cup has a wider top, maybe it could evaporate more, right? You'd have to test it out though. All right, and in our textbooks, I want you to answer the following questions and pause the video after I'm done reading them. If you are a marine biologist, you study living things in the ocean. What is one investigation you might plan? Okay, so again, we want to underline the questions. We make sure we're answering it, and one investigation. So if you were a marine biologist, what would you try to investigate in the ocean? What would you want to learn about fish or coral reefs? And down here, predict, using that scientific skill, what a marine biologist might look for on a dive. What might they see down there? Think of some animals or some plants. All right, pause the video and write your answers. Do, 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 do. Do, do, do. All right, welcome back, scientists. And here are some answers that I put. Of course, you might have different answers, and that's totally acceptable. So I wrote that maybe they would want to find what a fish eats or how it protects itself. Love to hear some of your answers. And predict what a marine biologist might look for on a dive. I said they might find Squidward, plankton, sponges, starfish, crabs, you know, the whole cast of SpongeBob. So you might put dolphins, anything like that. That's totally fine too. Tomorrow, we're going to be conducting an investigation to test out the hypothesis we make today. So I'm going to ask you, can a bowling ball float in water if salt is added? If you've ever held a bowling ball before, you know it's super heavy. I know for me, I have to like hold two hands. I can barely throw it in the lane. Can it float in water? Well, I want to tell you about a place called the Dead Sea. And it's located in a country called Jordan near Israel. And it is 34% salt, which is 10 times the normal amount of salt that you have in the ocean, like the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. Like even when you go down the shore, you know when you taste the salt water, you're like, ugh, salty. Imagine what the Dead Sea tastes like, right? So this is actually a picture of a woman sitting or laying in the Dead Sea, right? She's actually floating on the water. So if I wanted to conduct an investigation at home, I would think, if I used, let's think of something, we don't have a bowling ball at home. We want to try to think how we can conduct this at home. And we want to formulate a hypothesis. How can we investigate this to see if it's true? Could a bowling ball float in the Red Sea? So if we add salt to what, then would it float? Would it sink? You're going to be coming up with your own hypothesis today in our Google Classroom. So start thinking about your hypothesis. Can a bowling ball float in water? And what hypothesis could we actually test out here in Bensalem?